Time now for the news review of this bulletin. The surprise national holiday in the UK for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II has created chaos among the people across the country. Authorities declared national mourning after the death of the Queen last week. They've announced a complete shutdown on Monday, the day that she will be laid to rest. The announcement has frustrated ordinary citizens as they face the cancellation of their appointments with doctors and the National Health Service. Many poor Britons are panicked over the closure of food banks. A range of other economic activities are also grinding to a halt. Grocery stores, restaurants, and cinemas and other entertainment would remain closed on the day of the funeral. Air travel is expected to be impacted as well. London's Heathrow Airport has warned of disruptions to flights as the Queen's coffin will be carried to the capital. Said Purazar is our correspondent who joins us from London. We also have Weyman Bennett, National Secretary, Stand Up Racism, who joins us from London also. Welcome to you both. So Said Purazar, we're looking at how this has caught many in an unfortunate situation in terms of just whatever it is that they have to tend to with this holiday to have broken out. Tell us what state the Britons are in, or Brits are in, when it comes to this.
Well, we're talking about people who were already faced with a very difficult cold season, owing to the rise in energy prices that's central to the cost of living crisis cover. You brought the example of food banks, the decision made by some of the food banks locally to shut down, and the reason being that they couldn't come up with volunteers to stay open and help those people who really cannot wait until after the funeral to be able to eat. So that is really impacting a lot of people, millions who depend on food banks. But as to the funeral itself and the cost of it is really something that has stirred a lot of debate. You're looking at a cost of several £million to be spent on policing the funeral. The major share of that money to go into policing, 10,000 police officers to be deployed on the day, and snipers who will be on rooftops on September 19th, when the Queen's coffin will be laid to rest. What people are saying is that at a time like this, why should food banks be closing? Why should local council meetings that are potentially helping people with the cost of living crisis, giving them tips on how to reskill and get into new jobs to be able to sustain themselves in the difficult months ahead? Or why should the Parliament be closed for the duration of the mourning ceremonies that will be a total of 10 days and not legislate, look at important that period? All these questions are now in the public sphere, and people are not happy about what is happening as far as this funeral is concerned, Kevin.
Very well. Weyman Bennett, our correspondent, Said Purazar, posed many questions there. Do you feel that what they are doing is not logical, especially at this point in time?
I think that, we have to be, in this country, there's a level of denial. There's a compulsion that everybody's in mourning. Everybody wants to stop what they're doing. And actually, people that disagree are being suppressed or suggest different uses of those resources are being unnecessarily condemned. I don't think there's been an honest discussion about the whole thing. As part of the anti-racist movement, we had to march last week because there was a murder of a young black man by the police. And it was reported by the major media outlets in this country as a march in support of the Queen and the King. So I think there's a level of dishonesty and the attempt to say all the citizens are happy, there are no problems. And many of the social demonstrations and strikes have been postponed, but that's all that's happened. They've been postponed, and the conditions that people live under need to be checked. We're in with a government that misdirects people to blame Muslims or black people for deep economic problems instead of dealing with them. So for us, the question of the monarchy or the question of how it works, that needs to be questioned. But we live in a so-called democracy in which you're not allowed to do that. So I would say that people have got mixed feelings. No one wanted a 96-year-old lady to die. That's all very, very sad. But at the end of the day, the idea that everybody's wrapped with reverence and mourning and stuff like that has been mainly manufactured. But people find it very difficult with the pressure of social pressure not to question that. We're at a time of extreme need. Many pensioners and many people are going to suffer because of the massive hike in fuel, in which has been plundered by profit-making companies. But we're not being allowed to question that. We've just been told, just rejoice, just be in the situation, don't question the order. And I don't really believe that's the mood of everybody. And that's the reason why, many people are going to continue to protest. And if anything, in the future, the protests are going to get bigger, because the idea that, the monarchy is some of the richest people in the world. So what we have to do, I think, is constantly fight for democracy, expose racism and Islamophobia, and, actually look for some form of equality with respect. Kings and queens are all right in fairy tales, but I'm not sure that the main thing that should concern people is the question of the funeral. But it's very difficult to say that publicly without being called names or being subject to arrest.
So, Said Purza, do you find that to be true when you walk down the street in London? And perhaps if you talk to people that you find, if you can tell us what percentage are for this whole thing with the monarchy as a whole, or in generally speaking, as opposed to against it, Said?
You get that kind of sentiment from people, you do, but you look at the statistics, for example. The last one that I looked at was that 1 in 4 Britons now want the monarchy abolished, as opposed to 1 in 5 only a year before that. So that is an important statistic that shows the kind of anti-monarchy sentiment that there is here. Some are even saying, you know what? Great, another bank holiday. I can go to work and get paid twice or double. There are all kinds of feelings about this. Some are saying, looking at not only the cost of the funeral, but the economic cost that it will have in the long run, or even on the day, that some people are putting at the billions. The damage that it will do to businesses that won't be able to open, people who depend on customers going into their shops to eat, to buy things, or there are other people who are also saying things like, not my king, not recognizing the new king as their monarch, saying, as our guest said, that this is an institution that is anachronistic, it is classist, and it is very expensive at a time when people have to pay tens of millions of dollars in the form of what they call the sovereign fund to pay for the same security and policing that we talked about earlier on the day of the funeral and all the other events in between. People are not happy, although they say it might come down to 70 cents or a little over $1 for every individual per year. You know what? This is the spend on what needed, such as the National Health Service and in other sectors that people are struggling.
Weyman Bennett, quickly if you can, something that stood out in what you said is that many are not fond of the conversation opening up about the monarchy, about the way that the attention is given their expenses that has incurred. Who or what is pressuring people not to talk about it or preventing people from talking about it? Is there that kind of disparity there?
I think that, to be honest with you, there's a level of what I call social repression. You're not allowed to talk about the monarchy in any philosophical terms. if you say that the monarchy is connected to colonialism, you're not allowed to discuss it. And also, people, when they put their own needs, when the people that want to put their own needs, many unions in this country who want to put the needs of the working people forward are being suppressed from being able to do that. They've been told not to do that. They've been put under pressure not to do that. So that the cost of living is really expensive, but the voices are being silenced about what's going wrong, and there's kind of airbrushing to say everybody's happy, everybody's joining ceremonies. But the truth is, lots of people can't afford to heat their homes. Lots of people are going hungry. So, you know, those things are not being addressed. And also, ideologically, empires and colonialism and the British Empire belongs in the past.
Sure.
And venerating it actually makes people's lives harder.
Thank you very much for that, Weyman Bennett, National Secretary at Stand Up Racism from London, and Said Purza. Thank you so much for your contribution. And with that, we come to an end for this edition of the News Review. Thanks for tuning in.